Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DJ Spotlight here on Disc Jockey News TV. Fahjah, thank you so much for joining us today for this wonderful interview.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so stoked. I love when I get the opportunity to actually interview somebody from Winnipeg as well. So this is kind of nice. So let's hear about your early beginnings of your career. What did that look like? What was maybe your history in music as well?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start my history in music. So I think I've played instruments since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. My first instrument, I think, was the drums. I started lessons and I was really bad at sticking to one thing. So I'd take lessons in one instrument, quit. I'd be like, oh, this is cool. I want to try this. And then the next. So I did saxophone and clarinet. I went to half a piano lesson, then quit. Then ended up learning that later in my life. So I've been learning instruments my whole life. And then I think when I was in later parts of high school, my brother was producing just for fun kind of thing. And I remember I was like, that looks like a lot of fun. So I found out my school had a music production class, and it was super basic. We were just messing around in GarageBand, literally. So I joined that, and then I was like, that was actually a lot of fun. So I remember that Christmas, I asked my parents, I want FL Studio for Christmas. So I started then, and then I just kind of kept going from there. I'd always kind of listened to electronic music, but I didn't quite understand the world that I was listening to. I knew a lot of artists. I grew up listening to A State of Trance and In Search of Sunrise and all these different things, but I didn't actually quite understand the world I was diving into when I started producing. So I kind of knew some of the more commercial stuff, or whoever the biggest artist was. So at the time it was Avicii. So I got in and started trying to produce Avicii style progressive house. And I think for the next, honestly, probably even until a year and a half ago, I was just diving around, jumping around, trying different things because there's a lot of different things I liked. So I had made a bit of house. I had made some trance. That was that last thing I ended up doing. I'd made some not tropical house. I made dance hallish stuff. But yeah, so I basically jumped around just a ton, and that was kind of how I got into all of this. And I think over the last years, when I kind of found my niche and what I like going into and what I like making. Yeah. So
yeah, let's talk about that, because I remember when I first started hearing your music, it was very trance influenced. And then you kind of did a rebrand. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that? Because I know you were very passionate about trance, and going in a different direction can be scary when you've invested so much time in that as well. So can you tell us how that came to be and how you knew this was the right change for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I always liked trance, but there was actually never a point where I consciously was I want to make trance. It was honestly, the first trance track that I made, What We Could Have Been, which was my first Armada release, it actually started out as an electro house track that I just made at 138. It was actually a 138 track too before. And after just a bunch of messing around, it eventually turned into a trance track. And then I think from then on, since I got, like, it was my first success with a big success with the track, and it was trance, I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. Not that I was just purely doing it for, like, the success or whatever, but I did enjoy it, and, like, people seemed to like it, so I was like, I might as well stick with it. But I'd say the point where I decided to change was, so I went to, like, Amsterdam dance event last October with my brother and House of Panda, and you know, I went there, and I thought when I would go there, I would really find out what trance was about, and I would fall more in love with it. But I ended up finding the opposite, at least for me. I ended up seeing a bigger scope of music and stuff that I ended up loving even more. There was just, like, I think the very moment it actually changed for me was on when we went to AMF, and I remember, so Panda was like, you have to go see Vinny Vici, like, it's gonna change your mind, like, you're gonna love it. And, like, I liked Vinny Vici, but I hadn't quite fully loved them yet. So I remember we got to AMF, and Vinny Vici goes on, and, like, as soon as, like, the first side drop hit, I was like, I remember I just actually have a video, I think, and you just hear me, like, screaming. Both my brother and I are just like, oh my God. So at that moment, like, I was just, like, blown away. And I'd heard so many. Oh yeah, another very key moment. We went to Awakenings as well, and, like, Panda was also just like, you have to check Awakenings, and I was like, oh, I don't even know if I really like techno that much. And my brother and I was like, you know what? Let's check it out. Let's see what happens. And we got there, and, like, we were gonna stay there for 30 minutes. We were there for, like, I think, like, 3-4 hours, and, like, most of the time, him and I hadn't moved. We were literally just standing there, like, you know, like, dancing or whatever. We were just, like, looking up in awe, just like, this is, like, the greatest thing I've ever been to. So I basically came back from Amsterdam, and I was just, like, completely in love with, like, techno, the darker stuff, like, and then psytrance. And I remember actually the night after, it was probably a mix of jet lag and a few other things, but I basically was in bed, and I remember I couldn't fall asleep, and I was literally just thinking about, like, oh, I really want to try, like, diving into that world. And I remember I had tried making a bit of psy before, and I just couldn't get the mixes right, and it stressed me out, and I was literally just in my bed. I remember I stayed up for, like, 3-4 hours. I was just watching videos on how I can properly construct some psytrance. So after barely sleeping, I woke up the next day, and I started my first psy-brid track, I guess, because I wanted to make psytrance, but I didn't want to just make, you know, another psytrance track. I want to try doing something my own way. So that was what happened with my track, Dark. Dark was the very first psy-brid track I made, which is what got released, like, 4 weeks ago or something. And now I've pretty much just been going down this rabbit hole of seeing how I can combine psy with other stuff. And now I'm doing techno with other stuff, and most of that stuff's not released yet, but that's pretty much how it happened. There's probably a variety of reasons I can dive into if you want to with the change. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I just went off there.
Oh, no, that was so awesome. And I really love the fact that you mentioned just having that experience and listening to new music and how that affected you, and how it affected you so deeply that you're, like, trying to sleep. No, I got to try this. I got to learn more about this. I love that. I love your openness to try new things, and I like how you're talking about, like, mixing psy with other music, and you're like, okay, so how can I make this fit? How can I make this work? Maybe this also has to do with, like, some of the changes that you're making, but I'd be really curious to know maybe something really impactful you have started implementing in your career, and how did it change things for the better? Because I feel like that's kind of the direction we're going here.
Yeah, I think I think it's not, for me, it's not something that I changed my career, but something more in myself, I would say. I think when I stopped worrying, when I stopped going to my computer and starting music and worrying about the outcome, and just was like, because I remember a while ago I'd watched this one Skrillex interview that kind of resonated with me, where he talks about how he literally just goes in the studio and tries to have fun. It's not for the purpose of trying to make the next banger, but it's just to have fun. And like, for the longest while when I was making trance, I was like, I'm not going in here anymore trying to have fun. Like, that's what I was doing when I first started making music, and I loved it. And like, I'd stopped that for a while. So kind of making that change in myself, where I'm just trying to be myself, where I'm just trying to have fun, experiment, and be honest. Like, if you're going in the studio hoping to make the next, if you have expectation, like I was doing this too, if you go in the studio and you're like, I need to make the next track that's going to land on Armada, or I need to make the next track that's going to land on, you know, whatever label, you're not only is it not going to turn out the way you want, I bet your track's not going to land on the label. And I've done that many times, and it sucks. And it's also like, you would have been better off had you just been making whatever it is that you want. You would have had a better result, something more unique. So I think that's the biggest change I implemented. Just trying to be myself and not worrying about the expectations, being honest. And yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah.
I really appreciate that you bring that up, because I feel like that's incredibly relatable for DJs and producers and music makers. Like, when they're trying to force it, it's like, it's not fun anymore. And if you're not having fun, like, you're probably not creating. So like, the part about lowering expectations too, I love that you mentioned that. I know in the talks behind the scenes, when we were trying to figure out some of the things that you might want to talk about in routines and mental health, do you want to touch on anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. You know, one thing actually, I think that caused me to transition from trance to other things was because I kind of focused more on my mental health, trying to get into healthy routines, you know, cutting out drinking, eating properly, regular workout routines, all that stuff. And I found, now this isn't going to be the case for everyone, but for at least me, I think I was making trance, and actually I remember Matt Zoe did a good Twitter thread about this, but trance is kind of like a place for people that are hurting. I think it's like a really good comfort area because it's so emotional, and like it can kind of attract, at least for me, it attracted me because there was a sense of like, I don't know, home when you're feeling really sad, I guess. And I think by making trance, I was reinforcing some of these hurtful aspects of myself that I didn't want to be a part of, like anxious, depressed, all that stuff. Because every time I make music, I'd be trying to make something sad and emotional. And I think I'd actually, I had associated so strongly with these different aspects of myself, like depression and anxiety, that I thought that was just me. And so I felt I had to make trance because that's what trance was, and that's what it was. Purpose was to help those things. I had associated like so strongly with that identity that it was actually hurting me. And so when I let go of that, let go with whatever idea I had of myself, then I was able to dive into this new world, because I stopped trying to make music to make a part of me feel better that wasn't actually me. It was just something I was kind of associating with, and that's something that could be fixed too, had I been focusing on myself. So once I did focus on myself, I started to feel better. I was able to make more fun music. I'd say more music that actually made me smile rather than kind of feel sad, I guess. So yeah, time back in the mental health thing. Honestly, I think a big thing for most people, I think unless you make sure your body feels good, you're working out, you're going to bed on time, you're not drinking alcohol at least too much, eating right, like good breakfast, all that stuff, you're not going to give yourself even a good chance at dealing with your issues. Also vitamin D pills. If you're like me, you need those, and those will go a really long way, especially during Winnipeg winters. So I think you have to really make sure your mental health's on point, or well, not, you know, just like maintaining it, because otherwise it will take away from your music. And I think it did for mine for a long time. And the most I've seen my creativity flourish, and the most unique I've been has been over the last 6 months. And that's because I've actually been taking care of myself, I'd say. Yeah.
I so appreciate that you bring this up. I love how you talk about mental health and the exercise and food, because like we know there is a gut and brain link. Like if you don't have a healthy gut, if you're putting lots of processed foods and sugars, you know, you're depleting your vitamin C, you're depleting, or you don't have enough B12. I mean, even like people that have plant-based diets often don't have enough B12. Moms that are breastfeeding, just deplete your nutrients. And like taking the right supplements too. Like you're talking about vitamin D, like there's D3 and D2, and one does something you want and the other one doesn't. And like it can be a real struggle for people, because they feel like I'm doing all these great things for my body and my mind, but they actually aren't reading the ingredients, which sounds so like silly, but like, man, you can't just read the front of the box of your cereal. Like you actually got to read the back, and you got to know what all that stuff means. And if it says like fortified, like that means 100%. They took the nutrients out and then put it back in. Which, and people think, what, this isn't music related. Oh yes, it freaking
100%. Yeah.
Like all of these big name artists that are like thinking longevity in their career, even my mentors are like talking about morning routines and taking care of yourself. Especially when you're on the road.
100%.
Yeah. So,
your body is going to influence how your mind feels, and all your music's coming from your mind. If you make your body feel like crap, then the product you're putting out is not going to feel great. Also, like if you get to a really successful point, let's say you're like touring and stuff, you're going to want to make sure your body's being taken care of. Otherwise your career is going to, like, it can obviously take a hit. We see that with artists all the time. They get like burnt out, and some of them have to take a long break, or they end up in serious, like, health concerning conditions, like whatever it might be. So yeah, it's important for sure.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. So let's take a little switch, talk a little bit about music and shows, because I know you've linked up with TOs recently for a new Saucy Night, and you know, you're also occasionally DJ for 411. Why do you think you have been thriving so much in the industry? What is it that you are doing? I don't think I've been maybe even DJing as much as I want, but it's been decent the last while. My brother owns Teo's and part owner of 441 as well. So he puts me on whenever he can, and I guess I've been lucky enough to be able to DJ at least once a week. Most people don't get to. So yeah, Saturdays at first weren't the greatest. I won't even lie. And then the other resident, Cynthia Locks, and I made the decision to move the DJ equipment outside on the patio. And now the last number of weeks have been like popping off. Lots of people on the patio. Last week was extremely busy. And then, here and there, I'll fill in at 441 for the Friday or Saturday residents, depending on, whoever needs to be filled in. So last Saturday, Panda was at Veld, so I filled in for him. I think having people that believe in me, that are willing to put me onto spots,
has helped a lot. So I think last year my brother got me onto 441 Summer Fridays, and I think I was able to show that I'm, what I'm able to do a little bit. Because I think for a while people, and I think still a little bit, people think that I only play electronic music, or that I must be showing up and playing trance sets, which isn't the case. And as much as I would love to play more ravey type gigs in the city, I'd say I can confidently play most genres now. I'll play hip hop, I'll play the top 40s, whatever it is I have to do. So I think, having people believe in me, put me on, and then me being able to prove myself a little bit has allowed me to be put onto more gigs when needed. Pretty much that.
I love that. I love your humbleness. I love your honesty. Because so many of us, we start up nights and it takes a while to get things going, but I love that you're like, okay, so how can we make this better? And like working as a team to make it work. And you're so right. Like having people that have your back, that want to give you that opportunity, and then you've proven yourself, and so you keep getting booked for more things. And I really think we got to get you on the festival circuit, because like your stuff is fly, and you're just an easygoing guy, which it's always lovely to meet other easygoing people. And I'm sure you teach so many of us so much, especially with the production side of things, because you are a really good producer.
Thanks.
I know that you've done a bit of traveling as well. Do you feel that Winnipeg has something that other cities don't, or maybe something you think you'd like to see more here? And how might you help become a part of that, or are you already, in your opinion?
Okay. Oh, yeah. I like this question a lot, because I think a lot of Winnipeg's own residents like to rip on Winnipeg. But, the more I travel, the more I realize how much I like Winnipeg. And I'm always excited to return home, because, I will say there's like, we are missing some stuff because we're not a huge city. Like, we're not like Montreal, where you have like a bunch of blocks dedicated to purely nightlife, where you can jump from bar to bar, restaurant to restaurant. They're open late. Like, we don't have that. And I hope to see that. And we do have people working to create that. Like, I know my brother wants to see something like that. I can't speak for him, but I feel like Hua probably wants to see something like that as well as other promoters, maybe like Quinn, whoever. Like, we have a lot of people working towards trying to make the nightlife better. But our city isn't that bad. Like, I like it because we have a good contrast. Like, you can get a bit of a smaller city vibe, but you can also still get a big city vibe by going downtown, going out. And the nice thing is, like, if you're living in Vancouver, you're going to be bombarded with just big city all day. Yeah. And if you want to live in the suburbs, you're going to be driving far just to get downtown. Like, here, it takes you like 30 minutes to get from the very south end all the way to the north end. So really, our city is not that bad. I mean, our winters are pretty cold, I guess, but personally, I kind of like winters, except for the vitamin D deficiency part. I like them because it's like a really good time to stay home and work, and you won't feel bad about not going outside, because like no one's outside, so you might as well stay home and work. It's like good time to get stuff done. And also, like, it's always nice to, like, during the winter, you have people over, I don't know, playing board games or something, movies, whatever. So it's nice to have the contrast. Like, we get a bit of everything here, and I think if people move to other cities, they might realize that it's not as great as you might think. Like, I see a lot of people talking about how the dream is to move to like Toronto or something, and I'm like, honestly, like, maybe you will like Toronto better, but I don't think it's to the level that people imagine. Because, like, if you're visiting Toronto, you're probably seeing just the touristy side of it. You don't know the everyday part of it. You don't know that you're going to be paying tons of money just to live. You're going to be like struggling to make ends meet unless you have a really good job. You're going to be stuck in crazy rush hour, hectic downtown area. Like, it's a lot. So honestly, we have it pretty good here. Really cheap to live here compared to most places, and people are generally really friendly. We have our issues, I'm sure, but it's overall a pretty good city.
You bring up so much amazing points. The first thing I'm actually thinking is you're talking about like cheaper. I'm thinking about how much it costs to go to a club, even just for locals. Like what, $12 beers in Toronto?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
like, yeah. Drinks are far cheaper here.
Yeah. But also the commute, like, you know, you're not going to be paying like a $50 cab ride to get home.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I love that you mentioned that. And that, like, we still have things that we can do to grow, but yeah, to appreciate where you're at. And yeah, like, especially the winter thing, like, key time to be making music. And I find it can be really exhausting in cities like Vegas where it's hot. And you can do something every single night, and you're just like, okay, need a break.
100%.
Yeah. So to end this interview off, I would love to hear about any exciting things that are coming up or just released that you want people to know about. Mixes, events. Of course, we'll leave links below for everybody. Any ending thoughts?
For sure. So I have a new track called Black that came out last week on Disco Fries' Liftoff Recordings. It's another cyber track. Next week, I got a collab with House of Panda coming out, original on Brooklyn Fire, with a speed house psy-bass or psy hybrid. And come fall, I'll have a EP that's basically the size of an album coming out. So look up to that. And then September will be a really, really special collab coming out on Armada, but I won't say too much. So you can look forward for that.
Dude. Dude, that's amazing. And you're like just repping Winnipeg, like you and House of Panda and Kilma, like just killing it. Love it.
Yeah, Winnipeg's been pretty good lately. A lot of really talented people here. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today to share your thoughts, your insights. I hope that those of you that are tuned in today really took something away from this interview, something that resonated with you, maybe some insight you'd like to apply to your career today. Let us know in the comments below how you are going to start making some of those positive changes. Maybe it's on your mental health. Maybe it's on the food you're eating. Maybe you need some more vitamin D. Maybe you just want to collaborate and work with other people or explore other genres. Let us know in the comments below. And as always, make sure you don't let no one kill your vibes.